Before his brutal gangland slaying turned him into the ghostly seeker of vengeance known as the Spectre, Jim Corrigan was a tough-as-nails plainclothes cop in the blood-spattered 1930s. Catching the bad guy was his only concern, and guilt or innocence was something for the courts or God to decide. Now, the Spectre still walks the earth. Jim Corrigan is the focus for the anger of unavenged murder victims, and doesn't care if evildoers repent, only that they are punished. Today we're going to be talking about the Spectre issue number 1. This is a brutal tale of vengeance. This is the third Spectre series and was released in 1992. It ran for 62 issues, not including the Zero issue and the annual issue. And this is actually written by John Ostrander and illustrated by Tom Mandrake. And maybe, at least in my opinion, and I think a lot of other people may think this as well, this may go down as one of the, if not the definitive Spectre series, and will go down in the archives and annals of comic book history. Unfortunately, the series does get overlooked at times. Not a lot of people know about it, but those who do understand just how important this is for the character of Spectre. John Ostrander's tenure with the Spectre marked a bold shift in the character's portrayal. Prior interpretations often emphasized the Spectre as a wrathful but somewhat ambiguous embodiment of vengeance. I believe that Ostrander, however, really embraced the kind of Wrath of God moniker, quite literally, anchoring the Spectre more firmly within a Judeo-Christian framework than really ever before. It's unclear whether this approach was entirely novel or if previous creators shied away from such depth due to the preconceived limitations of the comics audience. But by the early 1990s, however, Ostrander recognized the growing maturity in comic book readership, so I think he seized this opportunity, crafting narratives that delved into profound theological and moral questions, transcending the trope of the Spectre as just a mere purveyor of inventive punishments. But enough waffling, let's get into the Spectre, issue number 1. The steel doors of Siegel Bailey General Hospital hiss shut behind Jim Corrigan, swallowing him into the sterile purgatory of the waiting room. He weaves through a tapestry of human suffering, the stench of disinfectant and despair clinging to the air. His quarry, a wizened old man named Louis Snipe, sat hunched in a corner. Corrigan, his eyes burning with an unnatural intensity, leans in close. Their hushed conversation abruptly cut short by the shrill intrusion of the social worker, Amy Biederman. Corrigan, his mission seemingly thwarted, turns to leave, but outside, the symphony of the city is shattered by the staccato bursts of gunfire. A hail of bullets rip through the crowd, screams erupting in a macabre chorus. As chaos engulfs the street, Corrigan stands untouched, the projectiles passing harmlessly through him. And in that instant, a transformation flickers across his face, and the vengeance-fueled entity known as the Spectre seizes control. Inside the hospital, Amy, drawn by the commotion, witnesses the impossible. Through the window, she sees bullets seemingly vanish before reaching a lone, unmoving figure. A cold dread settles in her gut. A blur of righteous fury, the Spectre tears after the fleeing gunman. Justice, swift and brutal, is served in the smoke-filled alley as the Spectre envelops them with his very essence. The Spectre, a vengeful whirlwind, wasn't flesh and bone anymore. He was righteous fury given form, a storm swirling shadows that pulsed with the agony of countless victims. Gone were the cobblestones and flickering streetlights. The gunmen found themselves plunged into a nightmarish hell. The air crackled with unseen claws tearing at their sanity. The stench of fear, thick, replaced the metallic tang of blood. They screamed, but their voices were lost in the cacophony of phantom screams echoing in their minds. The Spectre forced them to relive every atrocity they'd committed, the victims' pain becoming their own. But their physical bodies remained oblivious, trapped in the wreckage of their own escape vehicle. The screech of metal on metal became their only symphony, the acrid bite of smoke their sole torment. As the flames dance on the periphery, the Spectre watches, then vanishes. Later, shaken by the encounter, Amy seeks out Inspector Nate Kane. The grizzled detective, his brow furrowed in concern, listens intently as she describes the enigmatic figure she's witnessed. Across town, oblivious to the events at the hospital, a seemingly ordinary man named Danny Geller leaves his workplace. He carries a bouquet of flowers, a facade of normalcy masking a predator's heart. But the night holds a different kind of rendezvous for Danny, one that would not end in romance, but in a stark display of inhumanity as he murders a woman in cold blood. Meanwhile, the Spectre returns to the hospital seeking answers. He penetrates the veil and enters the fading consciousness of Louis Snipe, the elderly man Corrigan interrogated earlier. Through Snipe's fractured memories, the Spectre relives the events leading to Jim's brutal murder. The revelation dawns. Snipe himself was Jim's murderer. A spectral struggle ensues with the confines of Snipe's dying mind. The Spectre confronts the darkness he perceives within the old man's core, highlighting the hollowness and emptiness of his existence, laying it bare before the Spectre's wrath. As the entity releases its hold and departs Snipe's soul, its essence extinguished, the man's physical form succumbs, the final echoes of life fading within the departing spirit, as Louis Snipe slumps lifelessly into his bed. So the first thing I want to talk about, and the first element that really grabs the reader's attention here, is this striking cover art. While the use of the glow-in-the-dark comic covers became somewhat of a cliche in the 90s, here in The Spectre, it kind of transcends that mere gimmicky feel. At least I feel like for this particular issue, this shadowy visage perfectly kind of encapsulates the brooding tone and mysterious narrative to come. Unlike other comics and some of the contemporaries that it has, I feel like this cover avoids a sense of trashiness or gimmickiness. Instead, it achieves a level of intrigue that elevates it to this series as somewhat of an icon. What I really think is interesting is the introduction here of our antagonist, Snipe, who is masterfully illustrated here, just because normally when you think of a DC superhero book or DC vigilante book, when an antagonist or a villain is introduced, you feel like they would have a sense of power and strength and a large opening, and yet here, this antagonist is gross, grotesque, hunched. His figure seems burdened almost by the weight of the thousands of sins that he has committed over the years of his life. And the art style here is extremely effective, emphasizing Snipe's age and decrepitude with really like a chilling clarity. And the following panel, we get to see the ominous presence of the entrance of the Spectre as he bleeds into frame. I think it's so perfect, which just then culminates in a shocking transformation, the monstrous visage that morphs into Jim Corrigan. Great artistry here. At this point in the narrative, we as the reader are left to speculate on the connection between these two figures, Corrigan and Snipe. However, the intensity of Jim's stare, rendered with piercing detail, just absolutely speaks volumes. It's a visual dialogue just brimming with unspoken history, and I think this was a great panel to have that in. And this type of meticulous attention to detail is really evident even in the subtle presence of something like this, where you see skulls in Jim Corrigan's eyes as he's leaving. You know, just it underscores the immense care that these creators have poured into crafting these characters. The narrative truly ignites, though, with Jim's witness to a civilian massacre via a drive-by shooting, and Tom Mandrake's artwork just absolutely masterfully captures Jim's raw fury and disgust etched in his face here. This pivotal moment serves as really the catalyst for his transformation into the Spectre. And then we see the Spectre's vengeance on the perpetrators, just absolutely transcending physical brutality into something more, for lack of a better term, spectral. Ostrander and Mandrake unleash a barrage of psychedelic and mystical imagery here, creating a visual torment that reflects the suffering inflicted by these criminals and these villains themselves. This becomes the Spectre's signature method of punishment throughout the series by introducing a haunting mirror that reflects the true cost of these villains' actions. It's a testament to the creator's inventiveness, creativity, effectively showcasing the Spectre's immense power and his really unique brand of justice, which I absolutely love. Also, Mandrake's consistent focus on the Spectre's cape throughout this book and throughout the series just absolutely reaches new heights. Here we get a full splash page, really, showcasing the Spectre engulfing these criminals in his flowing cloak. Just a visual representation of their descent into a horrifying nightmare. The meticulous detail in the panel here just allows the reader to practically feel the searing heat and the agonizing sting of these villains' impending punishment. Even the screams of these guys just seems to emanate off the page. It's incredible. And yet, amidst this chaos, Mandrake still carves out a space here for the Spectre himself. After everything is done, just towering over this scene, he kind of embodies a little bit of both power and judgment. The Spectre says, "You punks bring death to your neighborhood with guns and drugs. You deal with death and you feel nothing. It's time you learn how it feels." Just incredible dialogue for him. Mandrake's design for the Spectre is also particularly intriguing because while the following cape evokes comparison to, guys like Spawn, like McFarlane's Spawn or Kelly Jones's Batman, the overall form remains pretty distinct here. It's kind of a subtle homage that pays respect to the lineage of those dark vigilantes, while still establishing the Spectre as a unique entity, within that pantheon of heroes and vigilantes. And this individual panel and capes that we'll see throughout the series is just further emphasized by the intricate key design that Mandrake incorporates into these illustrations. The design, reminiscent of, of course, other iconic heroes, I think really serves as kind of a reminder of the power the Spectre wields, but ultimately remains just a symbol distinct from its past and potential inspirations. But I just love the portrayal of this cape here. And then we see a flicker of doubt, maybe even regret and guilt, crosses Jim's mind and crosses his face amidst the wreckage that he's wrought here. This kind of subtle shift is just, once again, masterfully captured by Mandrake, and it hints at the emotional toll of the Spectre's actions. I mean, this vulnerability is further emphasized by his feelings later in the book, which we'll get to towards the end when he interrogates Snipe for the final time. And really seeing these villains, set on fire and to see the real-world pain that they are experiencing is just kind of a stark reminder of the human cost of his retribution, which is also another reason why I think we see this image here. Now, the decision to have the Spectre infiltrate Snipe's soul through his eyes is, once again, another striking one. I really think that this is a great portrayal and imagery here, because Ostrander and Mandrake plunge the reader into Snipe's warped perception, forcing us as the reader to confront the darkness that fuels his villainy. The artistic choice isn't just, stylistic. I think it allows for a profound exploration of Snipe's psyche, how we see through the eyes of Snipe how he envisions the world, revealing a world twisted by his own demons. And these final pages offer a visually awe-inspiring resolution. I mean, Mandrake depicts the Spectre emerging from his watery grave, a towering figure imbued with, like, godlike authority, right? And this colossal presence reinforces the absolute nature of the Spectre's judgment. Equally compelling is Snipe's desperate last stand here in his own soul. I mean, his weapon is a gun firing planets, celestial bodies, and it serves, I think, potentially as maybe a metaphor for his delusional sense of power, I think. Maybe Snipe thinking that the world revolves around him, that the galaxy revolves around him, or that he is all-powerful enough to utilize planets as his weaponry. Pretty interesting, but the ensuing fight across Snipe's soul is a captivating display of Mandrake's imagination, really. I mean, and then culminating in the Spectre's chilling revelation of Snipe's inner emptiness. Here, art and narrative just beautifully converge to deliver a really powerful image of true evil. Mandrake's artistry just reaches a peak with the depiction of the Spectre's final act here, because we see the Spectre doesn't just simply vanquish Snipe, he pierces his very soul with the armaments that he has created from his spectral form, revealing a terrifying emptiness within. Because even the Spectre says here, "You are an animal, Snipe. You are a petty, small man, and there is nothing at your core, only a black hole. Where is your soul? Look upon it and know yourself." I mean, just beautiful writing here. And this visual metaphor is a literal shot through the heart, which powerfully underscores what the Spectre has said and, exemplifies the true extent of Snipe's depravity. However, the victory is bittersweet, though, as we see in the following panels, which showcase Jim still burdened by the weight of the Spectre's mantle. And I think, once again, Mandrake does a great job of conveying a sense of this lingering pain etched on Corrigan's face, which is just a stark reminder to Jim and the Spectre, and even the reader, that, even righteous vengeance comes at a personal cost, and that he is still not free from his mortal plane of existence. So much so that the last thing he says in this issue is, "I hoped that this would finally settle the score. You were the last, my revenge is done, but I'm still not free, and there is still no rest." Well, that just about does it for the Spectre issue number 1. Thank you guys so much for watching. What did y'all think of this issue? And if there are any other issues or any other comics that you'd like me to cover, let me know in the comment section below. As always, we'll see you in the next one. Thanks again.